All right, so this is the key to equations worksheet 4. And so we had these two equations, and then I went ahead and wrote them here. So we have this quadratic equation that we want to solve, and we have also this absolute value equation we want to solve. So let's go ahead and start with the quadratic equation. Now remember, to solve a quadratic equation, whether you're going to attempt to do this by factoring or by using the quadratic formula, you need to make sure it's in standard form. So meaning that we need 0 on this other side. And we also want to make sure it's in descending order. So when I rewrite this in standard form, I'm going to get 3x squared minus 2x minus 3 equal 0. And this particular quadratic equation that's in standard form, notice it's also in descending order. The largest exponent is 2. The term with the exponent of the variable being 1 is second, and then the constant is third. We're going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula. This quadratic equation is not factorable over the integers. So we're just going to go ahead and use the quadratic equation, quadratic formula. And so to do that, we need to make sure we label A, B, and C correctly. So remember, A is the coefficient of x squared. So in this case, A is 3. B is the coefficient of x, which in this case is a negative 2. So B is negative 2. And C is your constant, which is a negative 3. And so we're going to substitute those values into the formula. And when I do that, and remember the formula is this, the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC. And all of that, that expression right here is being divided by 2a. So that you have to make sure that the division symbol here extends from negative b to the end of the square root symbol. All right, so then we're going to get x equal. Remember, this means the opposite of b. So b in this case is a negative 2. The opposite of a negative 2 is a positive 2. So get plus 2 plus or minus the square root of. And then we're going to put b in parentheses, and b is negative 2, and I've got to square that. And then subtract 4 times a is 3, and then c is negative 3. And all of that is being divided by 2 times a, and remember a is 3. So that was the next thing you had to write. So you had to put all these values here into this formula. Now we're going to go ahead and simplify this, and we're going to start out by simplifying the radicand. Now remember, in the quadratic formula, this b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant. And so remember, the discriminant will tell you what type of solutions you have and how many. It won't tell you what the solutions are. You actually have to work this expression out, but it'll tell you the type and how many you're going to end up with. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify the radicand. And so we're going to get equals 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared means negative 2 times itself. So that's a positive 4. Remember, b squared should never be negative. So this right here should either be 0 or a positive number. It should never be negative. So if you put negative 4, you've already made an error. And then a negative 4 times 3 times a negative 3. Use your calculator if you have to. So remember, a negative times a positive times a negative is going to be a positive. So I'm going to be adding that number to 4. And then when you multiply negative 4 times 3 times negative 3, you're going to get 36. So I get 4 plus 36. All that is being divided by 2 times 3, which is 6. So that's the next thing you would write. Then we're going to add these two numbers here. 4 plus 36 is 40. So I get 2 plus or minus the square root of 40 divided by 6. And then you need to simplify the radicals whenever possible. So let's think about the square root of 40. I'm going to go ahead and write that down here. So the square root of 40, the largest perfect square that goes into 40 is going to be 4. So the square root of 40 can be written as the square root of 4 times the square root of 10. And the square root of 4 is a perfect square. Square root of 4 is 2, so you get 2 square root of 10. So I'm going to replace the square root of 40 with 2 square root of 10. So this becomes 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 10 divided by 6. And you can simplify this expression further because you'll notice that this 2 here and this factor of 2 here and this denominator 6, they are all divisible by 2. Now be careful, this is not 10, this is the square root of 10. So that square root of 10 here is an irrational number, which really makes this whole thing irrational. But what I want to make sure you understand is that you don't divide this by 2, because this is not 10, it's a square root of 10. You can put square root of 10 in the calculator, and you're going to see that that is not 10. Okay, so watch. The square root of 10 is this irrational number. So you see that's not 10. But I can look at this 2, and this 2, and reduce all of these by, since they're divisible by 2, I can reduce all of these. So this is going to be 2 divided by 2 is 1, plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times square root of 10 is square root of 10 over 3. And so you'd leave your answer like this, or if you want to, you can write it out. You could say, you could say 1 plus the square root of 10 divided by 3, and the other is 1 minus the square root of 10 divided by 3. So there are multiple ways of writing this, but in particular, it had to be equivalent to what you see here. Okay? All right, so that was number 1. Now number 2, we want to solve this absolute value equation. Now to solve an absolute value equation, you want to get this absolute value expression by itself. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides. And so then I get the absolute value of 3x minus 1 is equal to 5. Now remember, to solve an absolute value equation, you're going to rewrite this into 2 separate equations without the absolute value bars. And so in the lessons, you saw that when you have it in this form, where you have the absolute value expression by itself, then the 2 equations is going to be this. So you're going to rewrite this without the absolute value bar. It's going to say 3x minus 1 equals 5. And then the other one is going to be 3x minus 1. So notice that this 3x minus 1 just comes from this expression that's within the absolute value bars. But remember, the absolute value idea is the units that a number is from 0 on the number line. So you want this distance here to be 5 units from 0. So that's why you'll see a positive 5 and then the opposite of a 5, which is a negative 5. So you have this 3x minus 1, which you rewrite, and then see this 5 here, so you can put a 5 here, and then the opposite right here. And then notice, so you had to rewrite this without the absolute value bars. All right, so you had to go from here to here. That was important. Anything else, if it's not mathematically correct, you would lose some points. Now notice I went from this absolute value equation to 2 linear equations. And so we're going to solve for x, and we should be done. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get 3x equals 6. And then to get x by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 3, since I'm multiplying x by 3. So we're going to divide both sides by the coefficient of x, which is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x, so I get x to be 2. So there's one of the solutions. And you can check it real quick. So watch. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. The absolute value of 5 is 5, and 5 plus 2 is 7. And over here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add 1 to both sides. So I get 3x equal negative 4. And then dividing both sides by 3, I get, and then simplifying, I get x to be negative 4/3. And so there's the other solution. But the important thing is to notice the work you had to show. All right, so you have to show as much work to get your points. All right, so that was it. So that was worksheet equations, worksheet number 4.